So we're now well into the second week of the power cuts following Storm Arwen. Parts of Northumberland and Durham, County Durham, is still without power, and Storm Barra is closing in. I'm staring out a blizzard out of our window of our farmhouse this afternoon. I'd be very disappointed to hear some people who should probably know a bit better saying how unacceptable it is for people to be asking for compensation when there are still people without power. Now, this appears to be a narrative that's being peddled by some individuals at Northern Power Grid, and the idea that, oh, we need to get everybody sorted and then we'll start looking at compensation. No, sorry guys, you're a big complex corporate organisation. The people who are putting the power back together are not the people who will be addressing the compensation issue. So I think first and foremost, it's disgusting to suggest that people who are now facing significant financial hardship are somehow grasping and only looking for money off Northern Power Grid, and how disgusting that is. And it shows a distinct lack of imagination to actually think like that. Let me just elaborate a bit more on that. So Northern Power Grid have agreed to pay compensation to people. And they've agreed to pay compensation to the tune of £15 per head per meal. They've agreed to pick up costs for fuel and diesel, for generators. They've agreed to pick up the costs for coal and wood. And they've agreed to pick up other costs on a case-by-case basis. However, there's two things. First of all, they require receipts for this. Okay? And the second issue is that they also require... they're also... There's no indication about the time frames that they're looking to make these payments. Now, I have been collecting stories and evidence of people across the affected area who are facing significant financial hardship because they have had to fork out their entire monthly budget in the space of a few days simply to stay warm. Now, it's all very well for people who live in the corporate world, like the people at Northern Power Grid and myself, to have a default to collecting receipts. Most people don't have that default. First of all, most people didn't realise that they were going to have to collect receipts in the first place, because the announcement about picking up costs of meals, etc., was only put out several days after the incident. The other point is, a lot of people didn't actually get to hear about that announcement because they've had no access to telephone, internet, or any other form of media. The only contact they've had is somebody actually knocking on their door. So as a result, people haven't kept or collected receipts. So how are they meant to claim for money they've had to fork out when they haven't collected those receipts? Secondly, there are bulk purchases like coal and wood, which are frequently bought or arranged at the beginning of the summer, beginning of the winter, and are put in for the whole winter. Now, we have got through about 6 weeks worth of firewood in the space of a week. We've got through nearly half a ton of coal in the space of a week. Now, it just so happens I could put my hand on a coal receipt. Can't put my hand on a firewood receipt. So what are we meant to do about that? Firewood has significant value. We've probably used £70 or £80 worth if we had to buy it from a firewood supplier. So I'm anxious to understand what Northern Power Grid is going to do about this. It's simply not realistic to ask people to have kept receipts. I'll give you a specific example. I heard from a working frontline nurse today who has not only had to spend nearly 500 quid to get hot food and drink into her family and to get them places which are warm, in increased petrol costs, and she's also had to... That money's also gone on expensive laundry bills for next day turnaround service washers so she can actually get to work. Nurses have to have clean uniforms every day. Now, Northern Power Grid have yes, of course, offered to pay for that, but, you know, only if she provides receipts, and there's no indication as to when she's going to be able to get that money back. She's now looking at a situation where she's worried about getting enough food for the end of the month and getting enough food for Christmas, let alone start worrying about Christmas presents. That's one of literally tens of messages I've had in the last 5 hours about the financial hardship people are beginning to experience. And those are only the people who are willing to volunteer that information, because there's a lot of very proud people out there who won't want to volunteer that. So for people to just suggest or imply that individuals impacted by this are somehow being grasping and ungenerous is absolutely unacceptable. Is absolutely unacceptable, and quite frankly, they should be ashamed of themselves. Northern Power Grid and the council and the government need to work together to find out how they're going to get money to these families as soon as possible. And I would suggest that making a part payment of the compensation that's going to be eventually owed to each household impacted this week is the very minimum of what they should be doing.